A very good evening to all that are joining us on the third installation of the Musaeus College Past Pupils Association, bringing to you face to face. This is a platform where we highlight and also bring to the forefront former past pupils or past pupils of Musaeus College who are now in their own accord doing really well in their respective fields. We've conducted two very successful sessions of the face-to-face program. And today we are embarking on the third installation in this brand new year 2022. And we are about to embark on a mini talk on a myriad of valuable tips on improving our immune resilience, sleep quality, cleaning up our diet, easing pain during long study or work hours, everything that is essential and essential health hacks at work and beyond. And the speaker today that we have with us is Teesha Wickramatunga, who is the founder of Workout.lk, Sri Lanka's most comprehensive health and fitness platform that aims to inspire active living while giving credible information and resources all under one platform. Teesha has a keen interest in nutrition, psychology, movement, health sciences, design and technology. Furthermore, she has gained experience in areas such as marketing, brand management, and is currently reading as a functional medicine certified health coach in the US. And also, she is a proud product of Musaeus College. And we warmly welcome Teesha to the face-to-face platform. And a big thank you on behalf of the Musaeus College Past Pupils Association for joining the session. I am going to be moderating somewhat the session, and I'm Harini Indikatia, a committee member of the MCPPA. And we will hand over to Teesha from this point onwards, and I invite anyone to share their questions, and we will entertain them while we go along. Teesha, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Harini, for that wonderful introduction. And I'm really blessed and privileged to give back to our school. And I really thank the organizing committee, especially Mrs. Teesha Wickramatunga and Harini, you and the entire committee for initiating this very valuable topic. I think it's very timely. I think during the last 2 years, I think a lot of people have actually got a lot of interest in the health, wellness, fitness topic. So I'm going to share with you fundamentals. I'm going to share 4 fundamental lifestyle pillars that will be absolutely fundamental to your overall health. So we will deep dive into certain aspects, but I will also the basic fundamentals which you kind of need to get right to have health, any kind of health. It's holistic health, whether it's mental health, emotional health, your immune resiliency, physical health, etc. So you will see that nothing works in isolation. So everything kind of works in synergy. About that, but also be mindful. We'll be talking about some things, and you will kind of realize that maybe it's a bit hard to optimize certain things. So just be mindful and be compassionate with yourself, because we can't get all of this right. None of us can, not even the health advocates. So please keep these in mind. Maybe you can make it an exercise where you kind of plant seeds so that you understand when in future, when times are conducive, you can actually explore this further, and you can even go find resource personnel that can actually aid you in all of these very valuable goals. So I think it's a great time also. I think we will be talking a lot about that as well. So just to kind of give you an idea why this platform was also started about 5 years ago. This platform was started just to democratize all this health, wellness, fitness information, because as we know, there's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of unethical practices as well. So we want to stay clear of that and give our consumers the right information, like a one-stop shop where you can find everything under one roof. So people, places, events, activities, resources, anything, you name it. So I'm going to start with the first pillar. So I think movement is quite important, because if you look at our city, Colombo, that's kind of where, most of us had our childhood as well. So we lived in a city environment, not in a rural environment where you have ample access to trees, the sunshine, the nature, and walking. So our city is quite different, because even if you look at cities like Bangalore, Singapore, people actually walk, they get their groceries, they go to the shops. But here we actually do all of that in a car, in a box, right? So we get up in the morning, we go in a tuk or a bus or a car, and then back, you sit in the office. Robbins would say, and again, which is very, very sedentary. We really need to look at what this is doing, because this is quite unnatural, right? And I really like this quote by Thomas Miles. It's so very true. We've actually created a world that doesn't require us to move. So why is this important? We need to really look at what this is doing to our biology, right? Because if you look at our ancestors, they were very supple and nimble. And what happened when we actually moved to the cities? You saw the picture on the right, and we thought it was quite normal to have this kind of upper cross syndrome or kyphosis. But actually, it's not the case. Our bodies are made to withstand all kinds of ailments, pressures. So this is very unnatural to the human body, because we were very, very sedentary. We saw this happening a lot. But now what's happening is people as young as in their 20s, people as young as Justin Bieber even, getting this upper cross syndrome. I know the picture might look funny, but then what it's really telling is that what used to happen at age maybe 60, 70, 80 is now happening at 20s. So this is a bit alarming, right? So we need to really look at this, because if you're using digital devices, a laptop or phone, pretty much guaranteed you are having some sort of muscle imbalance syndrome. So why is this important? Because if you look at our spine, all our organs are connected to the spine. I mean, we need to really learn about it, because we don't place much importance. But if you look at our organs, like for instance, D2, it's connected to the heart, D10, the kidneys, etc. So all our organs are connected. And why is this important? Because, well, if you look at our spine, it does not have a direct blood supply. How does it get its blood supply? Through squeeze and expansion. So that's how the nutrients get delivered. So if there's any good reason, a really compelling reason for you to move, it's actually to feed your discs, meaning all the nutrients, the blood flow, the vascular system, everything gets activated when you are moving. So when you're sitting idle in an office chair, desk position, for instance, you are not doing that. So that's where all problems start to kind of happen. And you've probably heard of this, physiotherapists talk a lot about this muscle imbalance syndrome. So there's different kinds of muscle imbalance complexes. I won't go into much detail, but it may sound even a little bit scary. You see how the spine is getting, like, depending on where the muscles are affected, like pec muscles too tight, posterior chain too lax, for instance, you might get, all of these kind of imbalances. It's just an example. Yeah, you've all heard of shortened hamstrings, but it's not just that. There's a lot going on if you're sitting in a prolonged posture. So this may all sound scary, but there is good news, which is you can actually do counter exercises to undo all of this postural damage. And physiotherapists are the best people equipped to give you this information and actually to give corrective exercises. So there's a lot. I've just shown examples here: chin tuck, scapular adduction, like the glute bridge. This is lunge, the warrior pose in yoga, for instance. I mean, it's just a very generic few examples, but you need to specifically go to your physiotherapist and check your specific biomechanical errors, meaning each individual is different and unique. So you need to really assess where you are kind of imbalanced and then, get the remedy. And these are really correctable. I think the past few fields, I'm sure they're in their 30s, 40s, or maybe some maybe even their 50s. It's really not too late. If you go early on, you can really correct this. And like ergonomics, we can't stress this enough. I mean, you've all heard of, your teacher or maybe at school or your parents saying sit up straight, because it's actually important, because you see how the blood flow can get impeded when you're even hunching forward. So that's where things like headaches, migraines, all of these things can happen. I mean, it's not the only cause, but it could be a hugely overlooked factor. And even if you look at the chair you're sitting, so overflexion, extension can happen. I mean, this is where, the scary stuff like disc bulging herniation. I mean, I don't want you to get too scared, but just be very mindful. Even your desk, the chair you're sitting. So what are some of the remedies? Good solution you can do, especially if you're working from home, is to actually create a standing desk. And this is easily doable. You don't really need anything. I mean, you don't need to get any fancy equipment. You can just, even try it out with a few cardboard boxes or books. So you just need to get the 90-90-90 angles, ergonomics right. And so even research has shown that this is actually fantastic. So what they're saying is, so the middle part, madhyama pratipada, meaning not too much as sitting, not too much as standing. The middle part, they say, is the optimal. So people find themselves to become more productive, having more energy, etc., when they're doing this. So if you're too shy to get a standing desk or create one at home, you can actually do stretches, desk stretches every 45 minutes, about 5 minutes is what they recommend. But the more often you can do it, the more often you can add micro movements, the better. So something very, very important in this slide is to actually, so if you have, for instance, a virus in your hard drive, in your computer, you don't actually, you actually clean the slate, right? You clean it, erase the bad pattern before installing a new software or an operating system. So very similarly, you have to correct all of these biomechanical errors, like I mentioned before. Physiotherapists or all of these physical therapists, they can guide you and correct it, and only then afterwards should you perform like crazy exercise. I know a lot of people have, they packed a lot of pounds, maybe waste, visceral fat, and all of that. So they're really worried, and they want to do. Go run a marathon or join the next CrossFit or Zumba class without having any background on physical, PT or athletics or any kind of physical conditioning. That's not real. Make sure you kind of break the pattern, right? So this is something we don't kind of stress in the fitness industry. So if you are starting out, you can try actually walking. Walking is very natural to human beings. I mean, everyone has been doing it, thousands of years, 200,000 years. So something very, very natural to do. And even better if you can do it in nature, because now lots of scientists are actually finding out, how important nature is. And they're finding lots of benefits, even immune upregulation, even, things like serotonin, your mood gets regulated. You feel better. If you have depression or anxiety, it gets alleviated. Your circadian rhythm, meaning bioclock, gets regularized. So all of these things happen when you are in nature. So ironically, this is what we didn't get access to during the lockdowns, but now you have ample time to actually reconnect back with nature. So we even organize retreats to get people back in touch with nature. So this is very, very important, especially kids. I think school children, absolutely important for them to understand and appreciate the importance, the power of nature, because if you don't get that experience or exposure at a young age, it's very hard to inculcate that as an adult, right? We all know that. So also sunlight is something I think a lot of people can get in Sri Lanka, but they have also found very low serum vitamin D levels in even COVID critical patients. So I think it's very, very important that you get your sun. But sunlight has a lot of other different properties as well. Not really, you can't like reduce it to vitamin D. There's lots of new science coming out showing how, even the electromagnetic rays, how it affects body, how the entire circadian rhythm, metabolic processes get regulated, etc. And another thing you can do is when you are in nature, try to go barefoot. So that means, I mean, a lot of people consider this woo, but It's actually true. You can, I mean, there's this, electron transfer that happens, but you feel much, if you have inflammation, it gets reduced. So there's science coming out showing, just being barefoot, especially children, if you have kids, it's not, I think I'll be also giving a lot of tips to parents and budding parents, because it's important to know to get kids in their natural habitat as much as possible. So with artificial shoes and layers of, we are also living in a concrete jungle. So getting them exposed to nature is very, very important, especially these days when we are in lockdown, pandemic times rather. Something else you can do is body weight exercise. If you're an absolute beginner, you really can't go wrong. And another thing you can really do if you're pressed for time, one of the most efficient types of exercise or workouts is actually yoga. So this is why it's trending in the West now. So yoga brings everything together. You have a little bit of mindfulness, breath work, the energy systems, the entire, physical body, everything gets balanced, hormones, etc. So something really, really great. If you are pressed for time, you can find lots of yoga teachers, yoga classes now happening as well. They started a lot during the new year. And why is this important? Because even things like Tai Chi, Qigong, get yourself in this rest and digest mode. So we have two systems in our nervous system. You probably heard of the sympathetic and parasympathetic, meaning flight or fight, or rest and digest mode. So if you are constantly in the fight or flight mode, which you have been, which all of us have been during the last 2 years, it's very important to balance it out with these So that's where, even if you can't do hardcore exercises, these are fantastic, and it's very senior friendly. You can even get your parents involved. And something else is important is to breathe from your belly. So a lot of people, when they're stressed, they breathe from the top of the chest. But then if you can breathe from the belly, this is what's very natural. So we've even done some workshops on the vagus nerve. So how, it gets activated when you do this deep belly breathing, something very important, even for digestion, to, stress, reducing stress levels, etc. And talking about stress, movement or exercise actually increases your feel good neurotransmitters. So like serotonin, dopamine, GABA, all of this kind of, technical terms, but then all what it says is your mood gets uplifted when you are moving. So very, very important to do that, especially now, to break free from all of the locking down that has been happening over the last 2 years. And you will see, especially if you have kids, I think a lot of parents might want them to sit in one place and study. But if you see on this slide, the picture on the right, the brain, how it gets activated just after 20 minutes of walking. So if you really want your kids to excel in academics, I think it's now very, very clear that you need to get your kids moving. And they've even shown how IQ points improve, your memory, your campus, all of these, get activated. And even there's examples of the Taiwan president, I think, and the Prime Minister of South Korea. They actually increase PT time because they know this fact. And this slide is about external pathogens like viruses, bacteria, fungi. So guess what? We have a natural innate defense mechanism against these kind of invaders. So what is that? Well, it's NK cells, natural killer cells. It's a type of white blood cell, and it gets triggered through movement. Yeah, so this is something you won't hear much, but this is actually very true. So this is the best thing we can do, especially during the pandemic. This is something we didn't get. But if you do add light movement, this is very beneficial for your immune health. So not to do too much of exercise. It's not like you should, do beyond your capacity, because that is stressful for the body. But if you can do light movement, that is fantastic. And moving on to the next pillar. Now, this is a bit hard. Sleep is a bit hard to control, because if you're especially stressed, you have, so many things, finances, husbands, kids, homeschooling, all of that to worry about. I mean, you might be really stressed and you might find it challenging to get deep sleep. So a couple of tips. I mean, this is why, I mean, I said just to be compassionate and mindful, because we can't get all of this right. And sleep is sometimes not within our control a lot, but there's a lot of things you can do to make sure you minimize distractions, especially turning the phone on airplane mode or turning it off. This 2 to 3 hours before sleep is really good, because what happens is when we are exposed to blue light, that's actually very concentrated, the LEDs we look at. So our ancestors actually look, for instance, saw orange light at around 6 in the afternoon, evening. So now we get exposed to different kinds of lights different throughout the day, and the brain gets confused. They're like wondering, is it morning? Is it evening? So this is why it's important to get rid of digital devices as much as possible, especially the hours before sleep. So morning time, no problem. Morning time is anyway blue light. But if you're using blue light in the night, you can also use software, because why this is important is it affects our bio clock or circadian rhythm. So you can just find out about this as well. This slide I know is a bit scary, but then if you want to prevent things like Alzheimer's and all of that dementia, the best thing you can do is to get adequate sleep, and don't mind about not getting 2-3 years of lack of sleep, or because you had kids, that's not a worry. But if you have decades of unresolved sleep, that's not good, because the toxins get accumulated. Moving on to the other pillar, this one I really like, because this is something you really have control of. So the other things, maybe you might be demotivated or it's not a lot within your control, but this one, the food you put into your body, I think Visakha would be the best person to, advocate this. And she has been doing amazing work, really being such a stellar advocate for our entire country. So I'm just gonna, like briefly mention a little bit, because you see, there's a lot of new science coming out on gut health, for instance. This only happened during the last 20 years. I mean, Hippocrates over 3,000 years ago said that all disease starts in the gut, but only now science is finding out that actually this is very true. And like how important this is, because if you look at 80% of our immune cells lie in the gut. And even if you look at those feel-good hormones or chemicals which I talked about, for instance, serotonin, 90% of it is made in the gut. So this is why it's very important. The food you put into your body can actually make a huge difference. So as I think parents or wives, I think as women have a big role to play, because this is something, I mean, this is a new science. Actually, a lot of even sometimes the media or doctors would not advocate how the information got lost, but it's very true. So you need to look at your the food you take to actually balance your entire system. And having even enough stomach acidity is very important. So a lot of people take antacids, but it's not good, because you need to have your stomach very acidic. And what decreases acidity? Things like stress, and sometimes even bad food and bad microbiome. When the bad bugs proliferate, this happens, right? So when we are stressed, what happens? We kind of reach out to something. And what is that? Yes, sugar. So why is this bad? So sugar is highly inflammatory. So over time, it can cause inflammation, like, tiny levels of inflammation. So this is where, you have all these metabolic disorders like diabetes, arthritis, to heart disease, all of that is linked to inflammation. So sugar is one reason, not the only one, but a big reason. And I'm talking about the processed sugars, which, your kids might be loving to eat. But I think it's really great that you give them habits of regulating their sugar, or even, if possible, eliminate it, giving good substitutes like natural sugar, like fruit, because this is very important for their overall health. And stress actually needs a lot of nutrient dense food. So it's very ironic that when we are really stressed, we reach out to the most unhealthiest foods, right? So this is why, I mean, sometimes it's very difficult because the sugar and all these processed foods become kind of like a drug. So you need to really avoid certain types of food. So I will also talk a little bit about that. I mean, there's very few things you need to do. If you really want to, I mean, if you're really, you don't need like very detailed diet plans or anything like that. But then if you can avoid these certain things, because a lot of people start adding, you know, maybe a kale smoothie or, you know, like a juice or anything like that, but without taking off the bad elements. So I think it's very important you first do the elimination, meaning like getting rid of the bad foods before you even do any of that. Just like I mentioned, to balance off your microbiome. So one food is actually processed foods, and another one is wheat flour. So I know this is very hard to avoid in Sri Lanka, but if you can, it also makes a big difference to a lot of people. There's also non-celiac or non-digestive related things that you will feel that will improve when you take off gluten off your diet. And another thing you can do is actually limit your animal produce. Like if you can avoid animal products. So we know now there's a big environmental cost associated with animal agriculture industry. It's really like a big polluter, like 1/3 of the fresh water, 45% of the agri-land. I mean, all of this is used in animal agriculture industry. But if you can avoid it, it's actually not just good for the planet, but also for you. So not to mean that you have to go vegan, but then if you can reduce your animal footprint, this is really great for your health as well as the planet's health. Yeah, I think the slides are stuck, so I'm going to stop sharing and start again just a little bit. Yeah, I think this will work now. So try to eliminate all of these.
Just checking, Teesha. We are unable to see the slides. I don't know whether...
There's also lots of vitamins and minerals that you kind of need when you are stressed out. So I will also mention about that. Let me quickly again try to share the screen again. It might work now. Yeah, all right, that's great. So I was talking about the nutrients that get depleted when you are, especially nutrients that you need when you want good immune health. It's not just vitamin D and C, but zinc, calcium, selenium, copper iron. I mean, all of these stuff probably you can hear from Visakha as well. Like she's the expert at that. So there's lots of vitamins, minerals involved in immune regulation. So this is very important that you also get your food from natural sources, not synthetic, but natural sources, because the synthetic compounds are very different from the natural source. So always make sure you get the natural source. Okay, I'm sharing again. Yeah, there you are. And also important is to yeah, all right, slides are working back again. And like I mentioned, Hippocrates mentioned this quote over 3,000 years ago. And using food as medicine is something a lot of pioneering fields are actually doing. Like frontier medical fields are now looking at using food as medicine instead of using drugs. So if you look at our ancestral diet, I mean, Visakha talks a lot about this. I mean, we have over, I think I learned it from her and the Nutrition Society, we have apparently over 220 something edible grains, over 220 edible grains. And this is phenomenal, right? Because we are one of the most highest nutrient diverse countries. I'm sorry, one of the most highest biodiversity hotspots in the world. So we are really blessed to have all of these vital phytonutrients coming from like wide variety of species, over 220. So this is really, really important that we get, our kids and even like if you look at it, you can get it easily from a polar. I mean, you don't have to go to a supermarket, and these are not expensive. These are very inexpensive, but also the most healthiest. So like I mentioned earlier, healthy food does not necessarily need to be expensive. They're actually far cheaper than you think. So if you can go back to ancestral diet, this is the optimal for our genetics. So that means rice, red or white, I mean, depending on the type of grain, and like ancient varieties, of course, and then full of, rich vegetables, yams, all of these. I mean, Visakha also talks about the people on that, but very, very important. Cannot stress enough how you need to get all of these phytonutrients in, because like I mentioned, this determines everything. And if you look at our ancestors, we had very healthy use of herbs, spices, for instance, like even something like curcumin, kaha, is actually a compound in turmeric. And this is considered one of the superfoods in the West. So curcumin is only one component in the turmeric, but there's, you see, science is only finding these things out very recently, but there's a lot of wisdom in all of these herbs and natural remedies, like ginger, fantastic antiviral. Garlic is considered one of the most potent antivirals again, and cloves, antimicrobial, etc. So there's a lot you can do by incorporating these back again instead of the modern processed diet. Because if you look at the ancestors, they were very healthy, right? They didn't need to go to, they didn't have, I mean, they lived up to 90s, 100s sometimes, and they didn't need to, they had a great quality of life. So they didn't need to go do their checkups every year because they were really healthy. They used food as medicine. So that was the difference. And if you look at little things you can do, I mean, I know a lot of people use snacking when you are actually in an office setting or even at school. Sometimes it's good to be mindful of what you give your kids and also what you take to office, because there is a lot of, okay, the slides are getting stuck again. Let me quickly stop and reshare. Yeah. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, I was talking about incorporating healthy snacks. So instead of maybe a cake, you can have a banana. Because yeah, okay, we're having, pardon the delay with the slides. Okay, now we're back again. So you see, these are some, a little bit of sugar substitutes and also like ideas you can incorporate, because there's lots of healthy snack ideas coming up now, and like Nutriballs and all of these things. Even sugar, you can slowly transition into fruit-based sugars. So there are lots of things you can do to help your kids as well transition out of this processed food, processed sugars rather. And the next pillar is mental health. So this I cannot stress enough. because now, especially during the last 2 years, I think it has been tough for everyone, not just moms, but pretty much all throughout society. And I cannot stress this enough, because even if you take care of all the other pillars which I mentioned about, if this is not taken care of, everything else goes out the window, right? We all know that. So all things start from mental health, and it's very, very important that you seek assistance. And there's a lot of volunteer organizations that do that, because even if you take everything else, I mean, there's a Harvard 90-year-old study that has found how human relationships are very important for even physical health. So cannot stress the importance of a good community. I think the MCPPA has a great community spirit going on. So that's fantastic. So even if you don't have friends, you can always reach out to communities like that. And there's always volunteer organizations that help you as well. So getting into work-life balance, now this is the tough one, because we saw all work, life, household, everything getting merged during the last 2 years. Now I think people are slowly transitioning out of it. So how do we go beyond? That's kind of the topic. So we all know that hard work doesn't necessarily lead to success. So even the CDC says that if you really value your health, you should not work more than 50 hours. And that's very, very true. So we all need to learn to work a little smarter, not harder. And that's a tough one. And I really like this. There's a book by Bronnie Ware, and she has interviewed a lot of hospice care, like dying patients. And then this came after number 2, no surprise. So I think we all kind of, learned that during the last 2 years. So why this is important is even the Maslow's hierarchy. If you look at the bottom pillar, the physiological aspects, all what we spoke about today, that is health, nutrition, food, sleep, all these lifestyle factors, very, very important. So you may have all of the other things in place, but if you do not have this bottom foundational pillar, everything else goes out the window, right? I mean, mental health included. So very, very important. I mean, everything kind of feeds into each other as well, but then you have to take care of this foundational physiological health, well-being overall pillar, into consideration more than ever now, because we are living in a modern society where we have lots of stresses external coming in. So to withstand all of that, to be able to be very resilient and strong, I think as Musaeus, as students, past pupils, I mean, you might be doing great careers now, but to multitask and do all of that, it's very, very important that we have this foundation very, very solidly placed. So we're approaching the end now. So I want to show this nice example of, people you might see in the West or Europe or US, Australia, wherever, you see lots. So you don't kind of see that in Sri Lanka. So I was really curious as well why this is happening. And I think the reason is because we don't have role models. So if you look at the West, you have lots of fantastic role models. I mean, people, you see on the left, Ernestine Shepherd, named as the hottest grandma. I mean, she's, all of these women are above 85. I think on the bottom left, you have Tao Lynch. She passed away at 101, and she was still teaching yoga at that age. So you see, it's amazing what you can do. So age is really no barrier. I mean, you can look young. I mean, the lady on the bottom right is Annette Larkins, and she's 80 years old. She's a raw vegan. Yeah, she could look 35 easily, right? So this is the power of getting your lifestyle aspects all in place, in balance. So there is a lot of hope. Old age does not mean that you're destined to get a disease and succumb to illness. There's a lot within your control. So I hope this presentation kind of, help you to become that kind of empowered person, or person who can, give great things back to society. So that's where, I mean, a lot of us would, I think we should all look at, all right, there you are. Yeah. Being a great role model, example, I think it's very, very important. especially to your children. And yeah, just like I said, giving more role models. I think this generation can do that. And it's very, very important to have role models, viable. You are doing, have to make sure your cup is full. So very, very important. Before you give it out to society, you have to make sure you as an individual, you take care of your unit. Your health, your responsibility. I'm going to leave you with this end quote by Jim Rohn. It says, take care of your body because that's the only place you live in. So I will stop from there, and I hope this is very useful, like a reminder maybe for some of you who actually take care of all of these aspects. Then maybe you probably didn't learn a lot, but it's always good to remind yourself in times like this, especially New Year's resolutions or wherever possible. I mean, we didn't have time to dig in a lot deeper, but then I think we covered a lot of aspects that are fundamental. And if you do take care of all of these, pretty much guaranteed you have no problem whatsoever. So I can also share you, I mean, if you want more information, you can just go onto the site and the platform, and you have, all of these resources. Find a lot of information. You can also get free advice. We offer coaching and all of these kind of services as well. So thank you very, very much. And I hope to see you moving.
Thanks, Teesha. Was just listening and making a few mental notes of what I need to start doing and stop doing as well. Just a quick question from my end. I think this was also shared by one of the committee members as well. On the pillar of nutrition. So there is a lot of fad diets, like you'd say you do Atkins, keto, the latest is being intermittent fasting. How would one want to approach some of these things in terms of incorporating them into their life? Because we're also looking at people now moving back into a hybrid way of working and things like that. What are your views on all of these diets that come about? And then if one is to kind of, pursue something like that, what is the best way to go about doing it?
Yeah, fantastic question, Harini. This is the question we get most very, very often. Thank you for asking that. So what you mentioned is actually very important to consider, because we have all these diets, and like I mentioned, there is no cookie cutter, one size fits all. So diets too are very individual. So now the West is also moving towards more individualized diet plans. So not just, prescribing Atkins, keto, or eliminate, whatever diet. But then you need to really look at the individual. They have, so many lifestyle factors to taking all of that in consideration, because even sometimes things like extreme diets are great for a season. So once you gain the benefit, for instance, keto is great for brain function, even glucose metabolism, if done properly. And then if you gain that benefit over a while, then you normalize back into the standard ancestral diet. So if you keep doing it for a long time, because most of these diets, there's not a lot of long studies, but also it's sometimes if you miss out on food groups, it's not healthy for the body. It's quite unnatural, because we are used to having these different groups of food in our diet. And the more diversity you have, like I mentioned earlier, the microbiome, the more diversity you have, the better health you have. So you need to make sure you have lots of different types of food and natural food, not different types of processed food brands. So you have to have lots of leafy greens, yams, grains, to whatnot. All of these, eating local, seasonal are fantastic, because that is what is optimal for your genetics. And there's a lot of research also now showing that. So again, very individual, even whether your fasting window, how you do it, like the meal frequency to the composition, everything is very, very individual. I hope that answered the question, or hope it wasn't too confusing.
Thanks, Teesha. No, I think it is also about how much of control you have, like you said, factors which are within your control, and how much of effort you put into actually, gaining the best out of it. While I'd also like to see and just check with the rest of the participants whether they have any questions. One more question around, I think, mental health and mental well-being. And this is also on behalf of a wider community. I'm asking the viewers of this particular talk will also be mums, will be wives. So there is naturally a lot of stress placed on the woman of the house, or the mother, or the wife. And while you also try to maintain, a balance within the rest of the household, what simple yet effective steps can we take to maintain our own mental health and well-being? Because it's not easy to get into a habit. So do you have any tips that we can kind of share with the audience as starters, where you inculcate a habit that will lead to you having a better mental health?
Very relevant question, Harini, especially during these times. I think a lot of people are maybe even a little afraid to seek out for this kind of help, because it's quite unfamiliar territory, and there's a lot of mental health stigma, as you know, in our culture. So a lot of people are very afraid, and they, especially, I think the moms, they kind of sulk it in, suppress their emotions, but they don't really seek help or even look at their mental health. They are actually always looking after their child or parents, but not really themselves. So this is quite to their detriment, because I'm sure none of the parents or kids want the mothers ill. So very, very important that you take care of yourself first, like I mentioned in that slide. There's lots of services, in fact, coming out now, not just the traditional mode, which is counseling and that psychotherapy, but there is, even within psychotherapy, I mean, there's so many different types of therapies, even somatic, like body movement, dance-related therapies, art-related therapies, music. I mean, there's depending on the person's expression, natural expression, there's lots of things you can use as therapy. But there's also like profession like CBT, to talk therapy, journaling. I mean, you need to ideally get, if you want general mental health, I mean, there are always self-help tools also available online. We've also posted on our blog. But then if you have deep issues, I mean, like everyone has, it's not a thing to be about. It's very important that you consult a professional, because these things need to be guided well. If you're especially digging into the root causes, the actual issues, you need certain guidance, and these can be cleared out very, very easily. Sometimes you have a symptomatic problem, but actually when you dig in, it's a deeper issue. Sometimes you need guidance and counsel when you encounter these. So even there's lots of different therapies. I may not recall now, but there's so many. And just simply even using, that's why I also mentioned, even for neurotransmitters, like I mentioned on that slide, dopamine, GABA, serotonin, all of this. I mean, movement, exercise, sleep, all of these lifestyle factors we talked about help as well. So that is foundational. So getting those right is very important. But we know when you are stressed, it's very hard to get it all right by yourself. That's where health coaches come in, and counselors, people to guide you, even like coaches. So that's where this coaching process is really helpful, to incorporate habits, tiny habits, and then behavior. We change them over a period of time, not overnight, but these things take time, because if you have a chronic condition, it has taken a lot of time for it to develop. So you can't do it with a shortcut. You have to look at a long-term intervention. So lots of hope out there. So I would really encourage everyone, even our site actually lists a lot of psychotherapists and movement and nutrition related therapies as well. So you can always call the hotline and get advice on what kind of therapy or modality would work for you.
Thanks, Teesha. Just one last question from me. I think this might help everyone as well. If I'm to just ask you, what are the top 3 health hacks that are coming up? I don't want to use the word fad, but things to look out for, or maybe things to start adopting into our own lifestyles. If you can name the top three, what would those top three things be to focus on?
Oh, interesting. A very interesting question. So I have not even thought about it because there's a lot of hacks out there coming in, Harini. So I would ideally stay away from hacks and gimmicks. So I know we even worded the topic today as hacks, but if you see, all of these things we mentioned about are not actually hacks. Those are things fundamentally you need to do. And that is what actually gives you the most effective and efficient results. So that is the, that's the catch there. So that is the actual hack. So if you look at the three most important things for general health, I think there's someone on the line. If we can mute them. Yes, I'm gonna mute. Yeah, no problem. So I would say the top three aspects you could look at, because in each aspect you will have a hack relevant for you as an individual. So I wouldn't say there's one size fits all again. I would be careful to point to any 1, 2, 3. But I would say number one, the thing you have most control of would be your nutrition. So getting that corrected would be so pivotal. But starts from there. So I would just rewind a bit. I would say number one, mental health. Number two, gut health or nutrition. Number three would be your, well, sleep is equally important as equal. I would say all three of these, you can't like put a number to it. They're equally important because sleep, there's a lot of detoxification. So any hack or any tool that helps you, ideally not a shortcut or a, like a pill or anything like that. But if it's a natural means of doing it, these three are the most important things you can do to upregulate your immunity, your mental health, your lifestyle, your productivity, your energy, pretty much everything. So number one, your mental health. Two, your gut health or nutrition, the food you take in, meaning eliminating the bad things mainly. And then sleep, getting deep quality 7.5 minimum sleep. So it depends on the person, but then roughly 7 to 8 hours. So these are again the most difficult things, but like I mentioned, there is no hack. The truth is there is no hack, but there's a lot of things you can do. And that's where all of these tools and professionals can actually help you. But if you can do it yourself, fantastic. We as a platform always try to make you self-sufficient. You can go to the site and find so much resources, all free. You can go to the blog and learn all about health from the start. You have all what's needed there. So you have all the answers within you, but sometimes you need guidance. So you can always reach out, and there's a lot of tools out there, a lot of help out there, people willing to help you, even volunteer organizations for mental health. It's just that we find that people don't really seek those due to various reasons, psychosocial factors. But we would highly encourage you to seek help, seek any assistance to get these three top three aspects, fundamentals.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot,
I hope
Teesha.
that answers the question.
Yes, I just thought, I'd throw in a curveball at you as well.
Brilliant. Fantastic. I love the question.
Just to highlight the fundamentals again. Just like to open it up to the audience to see if there are any other questions, because we have maybe a couple of more minutes just before we wind up for the evening. Any other questions that we have for Teesha? All right. I think a lot of the content that was shared was very useful. And it kind of was fascinating for me how the basic fundamentals, like you said, can really make a monumental difference if we do follow some of these fundamentals properly, and also give due attention where attention is due in terms of taking care of yourself. And also, again, just a reminder, it's also important to take care of yourself as much as you care for the rest of your family and those loved ones around you. And again, just before we wrap up, a very, very big thank you to Teesha and Workout.lk for joining face-to-face, the platform where we bring experts, those also who happen to be former Musaites, into the limelight and sharing their expertise with a wider audience, both who are Musaites, past Musaites, and wider audiences as well. So I hope today's topic, today's discussion, the mini talk, has been useful. And also I hope that this new year, I'm sure most of us would have made New Year resolutions. And I hope post today that we make at least one slight change or an alteration to one of those health and nutrition focused New Year resolutions, and we stick to it by sticking to the fundamentals. So once again, a big thank you, Teesha, on behalf of the Musaeus College Past Pupils Association, for joining Musaeus face-to-face and being a part of the third installation. And also to the audience for joining us on this talk. And do share, you saw Teesha's contact details also on screen. If you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to her directly as well. And this is us from the MCPPA signing off from Musaeus face-to-face. Have a good night.